Shalom. Lucas, the 8th chapter, commonly called Luke, the 8th chapter, verse 18. Therefore take heed how you hear. For whoever possesses, to him more shall be given. And whoever does not have, even what he thinks he has, shall be taken away from him. Shalom, shalom. How many of you remember being in school and listening to a teacher or an instructor explain a homework assignment, and then excitingly hurry home to do it, convinced that you have understood the instructions, only to turn in the assignment the next day and discover that you've gotten it completely wrong? Maybe that's not a good example for some of you, but no one has ever accused me of being smart. So here's another example. How many of you have been confronted by someone because of something that you supposedly said, and then upon explaining to the person what you actually said, their response is, that ain't the way I heard it. It's important that we hear things correctly. If we have heard correctly, that would have prevented some of us from turning in incorrect homework assignments. And if we had heard correctly, that would have prevented some of us from passing incorrect information to someone about what someone else had supposedly said. Excuse me. As a retired military officer, I know very well the importance of hearing correctly. Hearing something incorrectly can cost lives. This is why in the military, one must acknowledge an order that is being given. When the person receiving the order answers in the affirmative, aye, sir, or ma'am, that person is then acknowledging that not only have they heard the order and understood the order, but that they will also correctly execute the order. To give you some context to what Yahushua is saying here, when he says, therefore take heed how you hear, and that's verse 18. We need to go up a little further in the same chapter, Luke chapter 8, and start at verse 4. And if you have your scriptures, or if you don't have your scriptures, now's a good time to pause this video, run and grab your scriptures, and come back. Let's read through the scriptures. Let's read through the context, and let's gain some understanding together and come to an understanding as to why it is very, very important how we hear. Starting at verse 4, it reads, and when a large crowd had gathered, and those who were coming to him from every city, he spoke by a parable. A sower went out to sow his seed, and as he sowed, some indeed fell by the wayside, and it was trodden down, and the birds of the Shamayim devoured it. And other fell on a rock, and when it grew up, it withered because it had no moisture. And other fell among thorns, and the thorns grew up with it and choked it. And other fell on good soil, and grew up, and yielded a crop 100-fold. Having said this, he cried, "He who has ears to hear, let him hear." And his taught ones were asking him, saying, "What does this parable mean?" And he said, "To you it has been given to know the secrets of the reign of Elohim. To the rest in parables, that seeing they do not see, and hearing they do not understand. And this is the parable. The seed is the word of Elohim. And those by the wayside are the ones who hear. Then the devil comes and takes away the word from their hearts, lest having believed, they should be delivered. And those on the rock are those who, when they hear, receive the word with samiach. The word here is joy, but that's a Greek pagan goddess. That's another lesson. So the word here is the Hebrew samiach, sason. And these have no root, who believe for a while and in time of trial fall away. And that which fell among thorns are those who, when they have heard, go out and are choked with worries and riches and pleasures of life, and bring no fruit to perfection. And that on the good soil are those who, having heard the word, with a noble and tobe heart, retain it and bear fruit with endurance. Verse 16. And no one having a lit lamp covers it with a vessel or puts it under a bed, but he puts it on a lampstand, so that those coming in see the light. For whatever is hidden shall be revealed, and whatever is secret shall be known and come to light. Therefore, here's the verse that I began this video with. Therefore, take heed how you hear. For whoever possesses, to him more shall be given. And whoever does not possess, even what he thinks he possesses, shall be taken from him. And his mothers and brothers came to him and were unable to get to him because of the crowd. And it was reported to him, saying, "Your mother and your brothers are standing outside, wishing to see you." Listen very carefully to what he responded to the way he responded to what he said. And he answering said to them, "My mother and my brothers are those who are hearing the word of Elohim and doing it." And doing it. The context here is revelation or correct understanding of the word. The word is Torah. Torah is more accurately rendered instruction as opposed to the Latin word law. Yes, the word is Torah. When the Nabiim and Dawood and Yahusha and the emissaries referenced the word, they were talking about the Torah. At this time, the so-called New Testament or the Brit Chadashah did not exist. They were talking about the Torah, about the word of Yah. Nevertheless, here he's saying that those who have understanding of the word, to those who have understanding of the Torah, the seed, the word, to them more will be given. To those who do not have understanding, even what they think they have will be taken away. My friends, the world is in a drunken stupor because it lacks correct understanding. You see, correct understanding of the word causes us to bear fruit. Fruit is the byproduct of obedience, and in fact is obedience. Thus, fruit is used in the context of obedience. When we hear correctly, and when we receive correct understanding, we therefore obey correctly and produce the right kind of fruit. Because generations upon generations have not heard correctly and have not obeyed correctly, all sorts of doctrines, false doctrines have arisen. One of the most popular doctrines is the doctrine of, or the theology of, but Paul said. The theology of, but Paul said. I submit to you, though, how are you going to claim a but Paul said theology when you don't even understand what Paul is saying? Paul taught Torah. Yes, Paul taught Torah. Paul was versed in Torah. Very well versed in Torah. And he taught Torah. Sure, yes, he taught the weightier matters of Torah, the mishpatim, the raham, and the amunah. In other words, he taught right ruling, compassion, and a belief. But nevertheless, he taught Torah. But if you are listening to Paul with lawless ears, then not only are you going to gain a lawless understanding, but you're going to produce the wrong kind of fruit. You're going to produce rotten fruit. You're going to produce putrid fruit. You're not going to produce the right kind of fruit. In other words, you're not going to produce the right kind of obedience. Because if you hear correctly and you understand correctly and you believe what you've heard and you believe what you understand, then therefore you will obey correctly. In Proverbs, the 4th chapter, the 7th verse, Mashal, the 4th chapter, the 7th verse, Shlomo writes, the beginning of Chokmah is, and that word, that the Latin word there is wisdom, which evolves from the word wizard. So I don't use that word any longer. The clean Ibrif word is Chokmah, which means prudence, which means understanding, which means intelligence. But here it says the beginning of Chokmah is get Chokmah, and with all your getting, get understanding. So the question is, what is Chokmah? What is Chokmah? And what is understanding? What is Binah? Because I submit to you, if you don't have a base, if you don't have a foundation, if you don't have Chokmah and you don't have understanding, then I submit to you, then you are going to not only hear incorrectly and understand incorrectly, but you're going to produce the wrong type of fruit. Because not only did Paul speak in accordance with Torah, but so did the Mashiach. He spoke in accordance with Torah. And so if you don't have a base and understanding of Torah, which, by the way, is our Chokmah, which, by the way, is our understanding, because Torah allows us to rightly divide the Chokmah of Yah, which comes from Yah, from the wisdom of man. And that, my friends, is Chakmah. That is understanding, seeing things the way Yah sees them, understanding things the way Yah understands them. And the only way to gain that type of sight and that type of understanding and that type of wisdom is to align ourselves with his Chakmah, with his understanding, which in fact is his Torah. And that in turn allows us to produce the right type of fruit, which is correct obedience. In Dabarim 4, the 4th chapter, Dabarim, that is the 4th chapter, and that's Deuteronomy, the 4th chapter, verses 1 through 6. I'm just going to confirm what I just spoke. It reads, "And now, O Yasharal, listen to the statutes and the right rulings, which I am teaching you to do, so that you live, and shall go in and possess the land which Yahuwah, Elohim of your fathers, is giving you. Do not add to the word which I command you, and do not take away from it." I guess that dispels but Paul said theology, doesn't it? "So as to guard the commands, excuse me, of Yahuwah, your Elohim, which I am commanding you. Your eyes have seen what Yahuwah did at Baal Peor. For Yahuwah, your Elohim, has destroyed from your midst all men who followed Baal Peor. But you who are clinging to Yahuwah, your Elohim, are alive today, every one of you. See, I have taught you statutes and right rulings, as Yahuwah, my Elohim, commanded me, to do thus in the land which you are going to possess. And you shall guard and do them. For this is your Chakmah and your Binah, understanding, before the eyes of the people who hear all these statutes. And they shall say, only a Hakam, what the world calls wise, and understanding, Binah, people, is this great nation. I'll end this video with verse 27 and 28 of the 11th chapter of Luke. And these are the words of Hamashiach. I end this video with his words. While Yahushua was saying these things, one of the women in the crowd raised her voice and said to him, Baruch is the womb that bore you, and the breast at which you sucked. But he said, Baruch are those who hear the word of Elohim and obey it. Shalom.